said, Congress tends to be run by a bunch of 23, 24-year-olds.
And that you might end up meeting in the hallway or in a closet. You never know. It's very limited, but that meeting may be just as important as one sitting in a congressional or Senate office.
And
Absolutely.
And they are, for the most part, brilliant 20-year-olds who have a lot of passion, especially in education, who have a lot of passion for change. But they're also being called to know a lot about a lot of different things. And sometimes the insecurity they may feel around that manifests in ways that might make you feel intimidated. Just know that. You are an expert in what you're doing. You know more than anyone else about what you yourself are doing in your district, in your school, in your classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's very important to remember. So we talked a little bit about kind of in mind of like going and doing a meeting in Washington, D.C. And I think some folks listening to this might have that opportunity. I hope that they do. If they don't, are there other ways that they should think about engaging with federal policymakers? Perhaps if they can't make the trip to DC, especially right now in the midst of a crazy school year and a pandemic and everything else.
Yeah, the pandemic's really putting a damper on things. We all have to get innovative and think of different ways to do things. How I used to answer this question pre-pandemic was reminding everybody that both senators and representatives have district offices too, right? And they spend the majority of their time actually in their district, and that's where their job is, to connect with those locally. And so, you want to do everything you can to try to make that connection in state, in district. You want to invite them out to your schools, to, events. You want to just do everything you can to cultivate that relationship. Recognizing we are now in a situation where that makes all of that very difficult, if not impossible, to do safely. I think it's important that we really think about all of the ways to advocate. It's everything from, sending an email letter to picking up the phone and calling, a congressional office, to asking for a virtual meeting, and using that as an opportunity to bring more voices and perspectives into that meeting and conversation than you otherwise could if you had to pay plane tickets, to get to Washington, D.C. It's making sure that, you make the time, if you find out that they're holding a virtual town hall meeting, to be one of the participants on there, putting your questions in the chat and chiming up and asking, a question when you're asked. It may even be, writing a letter to the editor just to get the ideas and issues, out into the public sphere. I think it's so important too to remember the power of social media in this world that we're in, and that, you have the ability to articulate a message and tag a member of Congress's social media account, and, add your voice and make sure your followers are also seeing that this issue is important and that they can also add their voice. There's so many different ways we have now that, it shouldn't be hard to find the space and time to be able to advocate. So I encourage people to get creative, to put the pressure on, to make sure that you find the right medium, for the message you want to deliver, and to just make sure your voice is heard.